say it, I say it again, you've been had. You've been took. You've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok. This is what he does. I'm going to tell you like it really is.
Welcome, everyone, back to another edition of Let's Take 5, the podcast where we take one of the greats of cinema and discuss their excellence and range. My name is Eric Martindale.
My name is Austin Ligger.
I'm David Guiden.
And today we are continuing our Spike Lee 5. The previous films that we covered on this 5 were Do the Right Thing, Mo Better Blues, Malcolm X, 25th Hour, and we just wrapped it up with BlackkKlansman. And Austin and I are very happy to have playwright David Guiden on the podcast with us. Usually try to get actor friends and stuff and playwrights and what have you involved in the podcast and let them talk about it a little bit and sort of give what artistic expertise you sort of bring to the table. But we'll talk about it. I'll let you think on that for a second. And then while you're doing that, I'll sort of recap the film. So, BlackkKlansman's a film. It takes place in the 1970s. It's about Ron Stallworth, who's played by John David Washington, who's the first African-American detective on the Colorado Springs Police Department. Doing this, he gets involved in intelligence in the department. They infiltrate the KKK. He plays Ron Stallworth on the phone, and he needs a white cop to play Ron Stallworth in person. And the two of them are a combined Ron Stallworth to take down the KKK in a violent plot the KKK is planning, which is an attack.
Initially, it's going to be on a march.
Yeah. Yes, it's going to be on a march, but then they have to alter it. So this is based on a true story, and this will be the last Spike Lee joint we're covering, and it's a pretty good film. David is a playwright. David, I picked you because some of the work that you have done in the plays, I haven't read them all, but I did read a one-man show that you did, and it felt like this type of thing might be up your alley.
Maybe.
Why don't you talk about your plays a little bit?
Well, I'm working on one right now that's called Justice For. I'm working with a theater company right now we're in the beginning stages. We just had a workshop in June, so working on rewrites right now. But other than that, just working.
Just working?
Can you give us the pitch?
Yeah, give us the pitch of the play a little bit.
Pitch of the play? Well, basically, it's about a shooting that involves a police officer and a young, that involves a young black male. And basically throughout the entire thing, it's just, it's about that basically. And it's just showing you like the cycle of police violence. And basically that's it.
That's it?
It's really in your face.
Well, see, that I thought knowing that the work that you were done, because I had heard a little bit about it, and I don't know if it was from you, or maybe I know the theater company that's involved, so I heard some people talking about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what it was, and I kind of knew what it was about, and before I even knew what necessarily this film was going to be involved, I was like, this is kind of involves police, certainly police racism is a theme in the movie, or institutionalized racism within the police department. So I thought it might be kind of a fit. I hope it's not round hole square peg, but we'll get to it. So anyway, let's talk about the film a little bit. So when I went into the film, I kind of didn't know what to expect because it was kind of interesting. So I walk in the film, and it's kind of pitched like in the trailers and that. You almost get this vibe of like a kind of a buddy cop movie that's going to happen. But then I read a couple reviews for the film, and I tried to stay away from those a little bit, but I was trying to figure out the best way to pitch the film to my brother to go see it, because my brother doesn't see films. He sees the same 5 films like a million times. And throughout that, there was the same sort of chord that kept getting struck, where people were like, well, the ending is deadly serious, though. I was like, okay, well, kind of interested to see what that is. I know that the real Ron Stallworth isn't dead. So I went in there, and, it's one of those things. Yeah, it is kind of funny. But somewhere like 15 or 20 minutes into the film, I stopped laughing at it because, it stopped feeling like it was appropriate to laugh at it. Once you see sort of how unrelenting the racism is in the movie. First of all, we're supposed to laugh at these honky white people, and then it starts getting damn, this is serious, and also really, really dangerous for the characters involved. So even if we are laughing at it, there are little nuggets in the film that keeps reminding you that, oh wait, their lives are in danger. So this is really serious. Anyone else get that vibe? Thought you were going to laugh, didn't?
No,
as much.
I think one of the most telling parts is early on, the favorite shot in the movie, where you had Ron's on the phone, he's actually calling the KKK, and you hear him doing the voice and doing the description. You watch the entire department kind of turn and look at him, and you think it's because of what he's saying, but it's when Adam Driver speaks, like, you used your real name. Like, it's not going, like, the first thing he said, like, you messed up on that. Like, you were doing the right thing for the infiltration, but that was the problem. But, like, from that point on, because you didn't really get a vibe of, like, who Adam Driver was, really, because all you did was see him, like, agree with the chief. You didn't really know that he was actually going to be, like, committed to this the same way. What did you think of the police department depicted in this movie?
I thought they were depicted like a police department that hired on their first black cop. There's going to be the one guy that, is going to cause some trouble, and then you have everyone else who just supports it because they're a family.
Yeah. Right. Talk about that interview scene that kind of began his job, because it's him with, what's his name?
The actor that always goes, she.
Yeah.
Yes.
He always goes, she.
She also did in 25th Hour.
He did it in 25th Hour.
And, of course, The Wire.
And The Wire, naturally.
And they did quiet.
Yeah.
That was such a fascinating scene. Like, to me, like, immediately started the vibe of, you have to respond to this. No one's here going to change for you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And that's when I started to realize how good John David Washington was. I've only seen him in Ballers. And no one's won an Academy Award for Ballers yet.
Yeah, I mean, that was actually kind of the first thing where it's like, I'm not really... This is kind of depicted to kind of be humorous. I mean, it's that typical interview shot you always get, like, cuts to the person. It's always from the angle of the perspective is always from either the person looking at the interviewee or the interviewee looking at the interviewer. And then I was like, and then it gets deadly serious, like kind of the tone of the thing. What are you going to do if they call you an N-word? And they're saying, you need to turn the other cheek, not you need to say anything. And I was like, oh, because no one's going to back you up, right? It's like, okay, so I think this is what the theming of the film is going to be, right? It's going to be 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And by the end, you're going to hope you made progress, and then you're going to realize that maybe you didn't, right?
Yes.
There's something I thought was just so, like, fascinating about Ron, because he was someone who just his whole life wanted to be a cop and was doing everything right to be a cop, and yet the entire organization was already against him, even though it had, like, the giant friendly banner saying minorities are welcome. From day one, it was never true. And he essentially accidentally got himself involved in a case they couldn't get him out of. And it was still cruel at the time. And there's no resolution. Like, there's a part near the end that, like, Spike Lee is fucking with you because he has this, like, glossy look around the frame, like, after they've, like, done the big case, everyone's, like, looking and whatnot. And then, the chief is horrible again. Like, it gave the illusion this is going to be the ending. In fact, nothing really changed for them. And it was remarkably bleak the whole time in a way that is not seen enough in American cinema, I feel.
So, David, do you think it struck a good balance here somewhere in the mix? In general. Yeah, general. Because I haven't really heard your opinion on it because we don't really share this before this. I was very high on the film. Not high during the film. I was very high on the film. Austin liked the film quite a bit, but I haven't really got your opinion yet. So, and by balance, I meant the humor and the seriousness and just in general, I don't know. What you think of it?
Yeah, I thought the humor, I didn't laugh at it. I mean, the parts I guess you're supposed to laugh at, I didn't laugh.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was funny.
Yeah.
But I got the point behind it. And also, the very beginning with Alec Baldwin. Yeah. That was funny.
Right.
So, I mean, I know that's supposed to be like, satirical or not. So, yeah.
So you like
I liked the movie. It was okay.
Yeah.
It was okay.
Okay. Well, what do you think it could have done better?
Well, it's hard to tell stories like that because you kind of know how it's going to end.
Right.
So I don't know if there's anything that could have been done to make it better than what it already was.
It did at the end, it does have a feeling, an unsatisfactory feeling at the end. Like, but how else do you end it? It's kind of like what you said. I mean, the ending of the film, and obviously major spoilers here, they end up stopping this KKK's plot. You know, Ron Stallworth's a hero, his buddy is too. Ron Stallworth's girlfriend, who's black, tells him that she can't be with him because he's a police officer, so that was sad. And then you see a cross getting burned outside of their house, and then it immediately cuts to the Charlottesville and not just Charlottesville, but a lot of the Unite the Right marches that we see, and then the actual car that plowed in. I can't remember the girl's name right now. So that's Heather Hoyer, I think, who passed away during that, and then that's the end of the movie.
Yeah. We also have Trump talk.
Oh yeah, Trump talk.
Because my audience did not really laugh at all, except for beginning with Alec Baldwin. Not only because what he's doing, they make him look buffoonish by having him just constantly clearing his throat and looking like an idiot while you're having horrible images, not only of kind of what he's saying, but of D.W. Griffith's The Birth of a Nation. Mm. And I was thinking, on the way over here, there are actually so few films about the Klan. There are 10,000 films about how Nazis are bad, but I can think of 4. Birth of a Nation is a pro-Klan movie, which is terrifying, but Mississippi Burning, the Grisham film, A Time to Kill, and this.
I think Mississippi Burning is the only. I've never seen Birth of a Nation, so Mississippi Burning is the only movie I've seen on that list that you just gave.
It seems like the most basic thing of what are the villains we can easily identify as bad. That's why Spielberg keeps using Nazis in Raiders of the Lost Ark. No one used to have a scene of a Nazi kicking a puppy to know the Nazi is bad, and yet we are still so uncomfortable about our history and our present that we're not having any films about the Klan. And it felt so shocking, I guess, just to kind of keep seeing it the whole movie because of how many films I've not seen about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's really see the indictment towards the KKK that you do see towards Nazis, which used to be, I always didn't like, in a lot of regards, I didn't like Nazis as the villain because it was always such an easy villain. It's who's 50 people I can have a guy slaughter in a room and no one care about, and we can just relish in the violence. And that was a Nazi. But it's weird that the KKK, I've never thought about that before, was never ever given that its day in that regard.
Because the only laugh I had in my theater, which was...
See, this is what threw me off, because a lot of people were laughing at my theater, and then
really?
It stopped, halfway through.
I had very little laughter, except for in the middle of the film, because David Duke is in the film, played by Topher Grace, and they're having a discussion where David Duke is saying, I'm going to be a public official, and discussing the idea, it'd be very easy for to be a public official like me. And they kind of just keep describing things in words that Trump has been using. And I just had, my theater was just giving the angriest laughter at when I forget who he was even talking to, was talking about how, it's no one's actually going to hire David Duke to be an elected official. And to see David Duke keep using certain phrases that had the dog whistle to it, like America First, like the Lindbergh days and whatnot, which is also what Trump is using now. Mm-hmm. It is not being meta about saying things that Trump are using. It's saying the whole cycle just kind of keeps happening and has not gone away. Yeah. And to me, that was some of the powerful parts of the movie.
And that's a hard balance to strike, because if you do that too much,
well, it's kind of weird. Also a thriller.
Okay, so let's talk about this a little bit. So, 2 years ago, it's one of those weird things where we often try to avoid being political on this podcast, but we're political people, so obviously that's going to seep through. But you have 2 years ago, I would have said that the movie was too on the nose. But now, in terms of it's so obvious that this is what this is about. And with the American First chance, and he doesn't say Topher Grace, David Duke doesn't say "Make America Great Again," but he says something very, very similar to that. But part of me was it kind of needs to be that big sledgehammer now, because the basis on both sides, but primarily on the Trump side, sort of caters to the lowest common denominator that you would almost have to get hit with a Mack truck in order to understand, if I can take let's just break it down. If I can take a meme and I can, Photoshop Hillary Clinton burning an American flag on it, and you can believe that, and it can get shared 100 million times that this thing actually happened, then if that's what we're up against, then maybe the movie did need to be that way in its delivery. If that was indeed the messaging. Anybody care to jump in on that?
Well, I think, it's not just the message in the story, it's also how amazing Spike Lee is a director. Because before this movie started, I saw a preview for Michael Moore's new movie. And Fahrenheit 11/9 and my entire theater's like sighed, like, we don't need this, please. But sit back down, Michael Moore. And like that movie, it seemed obnoxious. Even though
I didn't get that trailer. So
because like even though like I agree with Michael Moore on like how we vote, that's not how you approach any sort of like discussion. Really, it seemed such a ridiculous way of doing it. Like he wanted to be the first one to announce that Trump is bad in a world that we are several pages into that book.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie was such a not only as just a message film, but also it's a really, really fascinating story that this happened.
Yeah.
And that Spike Lee doesn't know how to make a boring movie, and it's such a it was a thrilling movie in every regard, just to figure out like how, because they not only like talked about like this is the procedure how it was done, like every single step was it needed to have these two guys at the top of their game to pull this off, and it was at its best suspense when you're playing this kind of deceit when you're up against people who are idiots, but they're idiots with guns, and that to me is one of the most terrifying things. Like Ivanhoe is a complete goof of a person. He is this very overweight racist who is, I think, drunk the entire movie, and yet he is still a terrifying figure because he will not stop or learn, and he is just going to be cruel.
So what do you think, dude? We talked a lot over here. We don't I don't feel like I'm be talking over some point.
Not at all. Yeah, and for me, I feel like I've seen it before.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I felt, because, I know history, and I think you guys do too.
Yeah.
So
well, our history is going to be a little different from yours too, obviously. So it's kind of one of those things where I really wonder how different racists felt about the film. Honestly, coming at the, I mean, that would be the thing. That would be sort of the litmus test to see how that played.
Like when what's her name?
Patrice,
like when she turns him down because he's a cop, I didn't find anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
And some people will feel, oh, that's so sad.
It's
Why?
sad.
I'm like, nah. I see her point.
Right.
I get her point.
Or the general difference between this was there's a beautifully elegant point in here that is actually, believe it or not, more subtle than the other points they try to make. But like why white power is bad, like why saying white power is bad, and the history behind that versus saying black power, which you have these two different scenes going on in the play displaying. Well, this is what white power means, right? This room full of KKK. These are the people shouting that. So if you want to shout that, look who you're throwing in with here. And then you have a completely different set of circumstances with people with black power talking about, wow, look at all the shit we've had to overcome, and you have the older black man there explaining the stuff that happened to him when he was a boy. And it's like, yeah, okay. So maybe so what if we hurt some white person's feelings in the audience? Like, this points need to be made. And unfortunately, I'm afraid that the people that need to see this film the most aren't going to be the ones that see it.
No.
Who else had that thought?
It's like, people who are Spike Lee fans will go see the movie because they're Spike Lee fans, but I don't think people who are like Trump supporters are going to be jumping out of their seats to come see this movie.
Or they're going to leave.
Or they'll leave. Yeah, they'll leave. They're like, fuck this.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with it, because there's this casual sort of like,
okay, not wanting to look at yourself in the mirror.
Not wanting to look at yourself in the mirror because you think it's everyone else's problem. I mean, I was raised by some of these people, so I get it. It's this feeling that you somehow they are starting to feel marginalized. It's like you always need to like look at yourself in the mirror. I mean, consider your situation as opposed to someone else's, and also being willing to, in any debate, change your mind. Be willing to change your mind. If not, there's no point in even talking.
Or even listen. Just listen.
Just listen. Just shut up and listen for 2 seconds. Maybe there's a reason why people feel a certain way. In the meantime, no one's going to be trying to reach around you and take your gun away from you, like or whatever new cause we're rallying behind. And I feel like that sort of debate has gotten so stupid over the past 4 or 5 years because everyone's drifted so far apart. Like, remember, like, in 2012 when, like, Romney and Obama were running for president and that seemed pretty normal?
Yeah.
That wasn't that long ago.
No, it wasn't.
You know, and it's like now everything just feels like it's fucking insane. It's like, and it is. It is.
Because it 100% is.
And then you need a movie like this to exist, again, willing to hit people over a sledgehammer with, because no one's listening. But no one's listening to anyone, and no one's willing to listen to anyone.
There was a fascinating part at the beginning when the first time they bring Ron out of the records room to have him go to this speech because they wanted to have him infiltrate this. There's no reason to infiltrate it. Like, he's in the line, he's like, how do I get in the line? You buy a ticket.
Yeah.
So they're sitting outside wiring a event that's open to the public. You can buy a ticket, but and that's insane. Like they don't, and it makes sense because even though these two guys in the car are not some of the most like offensive members of the squad, they still are listening to every word as a threat or a warning, and still like they're not listening to the full message in the way that Ron was. And one of the coolest things about Ron as a character is because he wanted to be a cop, and it's just like he wanted to be an undercover cop immediately. Mm-hmm. So he's someone who is acting like a chameleon the whole movie. And it's actually very rare, because when he first meets Patrice, he's acting like someone who's undercover that day. He has to act in the department a certain way, because he's been told directly, you can't respond this way to the bigots. And I love all the scenes with Patrice afterwards, because he's no longer on the case, and it's almost like he's determining his own opinions about all this as he's going. Like, he's not on the clock in a way where he has to pretend to be a Klansman, or someone who's okay with what's going on in the department.
It's like extreme code switching.
Yes.
Well, she sort of grounds him in the midst of being in a police department and being the only black man
and
there.
He does say at one point, I'm also down for the cause.
Yeah.
So it's not enough for her.
It's not. So elaborate on that for me. So, like, if I'm sitting in the movie theater as a white person and I say, that breaks my heart. You were mentioning earlier,
yeah.
Well, why is she able to walk away? Why is that?
Just because the long history of cops and just knowing that they're going to stick with their own. Mm-hmm. They're not going to stray away from the few bad ones. They're going to be there for them.
Right.
If anything happens, good or bad.
And I think the movie makes a good job of making that point. It's not saying that all cops are bad. It's saying the cops are a brotherhood.
Right.
So.
Well, you don't see in this movie the cops doing any justice at all. Right?
No.
Ron starts this case. They're infiltrating this group, and you see Patrice and the speaker getting pulled over and assaulted. The only time you watch any decision made by the cops in this movie to be a force to the community is when they tell him to protect David Duke. And that's like the most offensive and ridiculous thing to do in the midst of trying to stop an actual bombing. That there's a reason why Patrice doesn't see this group at all as protecting them. Mm-hmm. And
that was really uncomfortable. That was a really uncomfortable part of the movie.
Which one? Oh, it's the David Duke thing? Yeah.
Because, like, I haven't read the real story, but something that's that outlandish had to have happened. So
I think so. I think that's
insane. But that's crazy.
That was the second laugh I had in theater when he gets the photo with David.
Oh, the photo's great.
And he grabs by the shoulders and gets a big smile.
Oh, yeah.
To the annoyance of David Duke.
Ironic. Yeah. This is the worst thing that they could have done was him touch them.
Yeah.
Too. So I was thinking about the actors in this, and I think that John David Washington should. I really.
Did you know he was Denzel's son?
I did not know that.
Yeah. There are a few times when he is with Patrice, like walking by the river. Mm-hmm. There are a few Denzelisms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I did go to the bathroom really quick during the movie, so don't talk about those 70 seconds I missed. But when I was walking back...
those were super cool, too. I knew it really were. But that's where they, like, put all the films up there, and it was a really...
Yeah, that's the nuance.
You missed a lot of cool stuff.
Oh, you did miss, actually.
Yeah. It was in the middle of the film. The 70 seconds.
Yes.
I'm kidding. But when I came back from the bathroom in the middle of the movie, and I just heard his voice and now see his face, I heard some of the Denzelisms as well. He's really good. I mean, again, Fallers is fine.
Yeah.
But I
think he's good enough. I hope he gets recognized at the Oscars for a nomination at least. I also thought Topher Grace was great as David Duke.
Yes.
I like that his performance, because I think that guy has one performance, he just does it in every film. But to do the Topher Grace performance as David Duke was like really revealing. And also to see him in that 70 Show the Garb again. made that show a whole different
I
thing.
get that. He really handled that sly type of racism really well.
And there's something else, so like...
It's scary.
It's way scarier than everyone else, and you see why he's in charge, because you have these other characters that range in idiocy, but then you get someone who is still an idiot, but he's articulate. You know, he puts a little extra majesty onto the KKK in a weird, creepy way that makes you see why, he's in charge, and that's why he's scary. And also, it's the precursor to someone like, you know, a Donald Trump. Whether people realize it or not, that's the thing, is that it's that slow, casual, like, cancer that spreads really, really slowly to where people get to a point, David Dukes of the world, get the other people to a point where they end up supporting racists without actually realizing they were racist. Yeah. It's like, how do we get here?
Well, there's still the profiting off David Duke, because he's on Twitter, and whenever he makes a comment about anything, then all these news outlets want to talk about what David Duke said about blah, blah, blah. Like,
that's really
the media is keeping him relevancy, and...
This was the same thing happened during the Trump thing, too. No one could shut up about him.
They still can't.
Can't shut up about him.
Yeah.
You know, he gets 24-hour news coverage. And I don't know. That's going off the rails a little bit here, but...
And this episode's coming out early September, so we have no idea what has been said in the past 2 weeks.
What new scandal?
Oh, God.
Something new will
What 20 new scandals have there been in the past 2 weeks?
Yeah, we've got to get to a point where there's so many scandals that I can't keep track.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at Twitter for 30 minutes now, so.
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows what's happened? I like the film a lot. Just like to wrap it up and bring in closing. I really thought it did a great job of being. It still had that nice Spike Lee sort of touch in it. I was explaining to him earlier when we were talking. I think we were talking about 25th Hour, but we recorded where were we at? Mo Better Blues. Mm-hmm. And I was talking about how the thing that Quentin Tarantino gets credit for about actors being in a room and talking to each other and having this really sort of naturalistic dialogue. I think that was all. I like Spike Lee's version of that better because because they both do that. That's what they're both like really famous for too, and you know various different stylistic shots. Which I was glad that at the end of the film we finally got that classic Spike Lee shot where we're rolling down the hallway. But like when you get two actors in a room just talking to each other and explaining you know their truth, what they're about. And Quentin Tarantino always feels like he's trying to go for that in a way where Spike Lee feels like, this is just real. It's just natural. Mm-hmm. It's like, here's the Quentin Tarantino scene where they talk about, like a virgin and Madonna, and look, this is how people talk. And I feel like Spike Lee actually does that better, and this film was another great example of that happening. The conversations he has with Adam Driver in the film, and Patrice, I forget the actress's name. They're great. They're great. And that continues to be a thing that shines through all of his work that I continually be impressed with, and I wish he was more famous for.
We'll talk about it on the wrap-up episode. I started rewatching his Netflix series, She's Gotta Have It, and the dialogue is so good. It's based off his very first film. He's adapting it, and he wrote the first and the last episode, and he directed the whole series. And the fact that there's a monologue in the first episode about how Denzel should have won the Oscar for Malcolm X, and it's the most like meta indulgent thing, but it's still like so naturalistic. Like her explaining exactly why Al Pacino should have won for different words, not Son of a Woman, and it's really funny. And it was remarkably like I bought that character doing it, even though this is still just Spike Lee mad 20 years later at the Oscars.
Wait, so 1992 was Malcolm X, right?
Uh-huh.
So was that Philadelphia Tom Hanks?
Al Pacino, Son of a Woman.
That's Son of a Woman. It's probably because it was the 50th time he got nominated and they felt like they had to give it to him. That is
most of the monologue she has.
Is that what she said?
It's her going through all these previous nominations of why he should have won for Dog Day Afternoon, but not this. And
then Unforgiven was Best Picture that year?
No.
Gosh, I suck. I can't keep them straight in mind.
But
any final thoughts on the film?
I thought it was okay.
Yeah?
That was okay.
Recommend it?
Recommend it? Yeah, I recommend it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a good time. I think it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You want to take us out of here?
Yeah, all right. So, thank you all for listening, everybody. We'll be back on Wednesday. We're going to do our Spike Lee wrap-up and announce our next 5. Until then, you can check us out on theartofmore.com, where you can see all of our previous episodes. Also, can check out the other podcasts, including The Immortals. This week, they're all reviewing Hearts of Darkness, the documentary about the making of Apocalypse Now, and the complete clusterfuck that was. And also, Ad Absurdum is there, where 2 lawyers talk about real-life legal implications of pop culture. And the most recent episode is Escape from New York, but they should have new ones coming very soon. Eric, where can we find you?
Constant Aversion's my YouTube channel. Check me out on there.
David, want to plug anything?
I'm good.
You good?
I'm good. If you're in Chicago, come see my show next spring. Hopefully.
Okay.
What theater is that?
Walton Mechanics.
Okay.
Awesome.
Are they still doing it at the Greenhouse? Or is that
I think that's Stiller Space.
That's
yeah.
Stiller Space. So the Greenhouse Theater in Lincoln Park.
Hopefully.
Yeah, definitely be there for that. Looking forward to that. Next spring, they said?
Yes.
And the read went great?
The read went well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of nerve-wracking watching other actors.
Oh, it was so nerve-wracking. Oh my God. I was like, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it all wrong. You're ruining my words.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. I remember.
Are you screaming that from the audience?
Yeah. With all the beers in my hand.
Yeah, all right. Well, that about wraps us up. My name's Eric Marnell.
I'm Austin Luger.
I'm David Guiden.
All right. We'll catch you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
I didn't want to say we're trapped, but that Peckerwood had a gun in my face. And he was an ass hair away from pulling the trigger.
And he didn't.
But he could have. And then I would have been dead. For what? Stopping some jerk-offs from playing dress-up?
Flip, it's intel.
Well, I'm not risking my life to prevent some rednecks from lighting a couple sticks on fire.
This is the job. What's your problem?
That's my problem. For you, it's a crusade. For me, it's a job. It's not personal, nor should it be.
Why haven't you bought into this?
Why should I?
Because you're Jewish, brother. The so-called chosen people. You've been passing for a WASP. White Anglo-Saxon Protestant, cherry pie hot dog white boy. That's what some light-skinned black folks do. They pass for white. Doesn't that hatred you've been hearing the Klan say, doesn't that piss you off?
Of course it does.
Then why are you acting like you ain't got skin in the game, brother?
Rookie, that's my fucking business.
It's our business. I'm going to get you your membership card so you can go to the cross burning and get in deeper with these guys.
Right, partner?